All right, we are going to take a look here in this lesson about how to accompany a singer. And this really, what we're going to learn applies in a lot of ways. We're going to talk about how to read a chord sheet. If someone comes to you and gives you just words and chords, this happens a lot, especially if you play in church. If someone brings you a song and say, hey, I want to sing this, and they'll give you a sheet that looks like what we've got right here. We're going to look at Here I Am to Worship. It's a worship song by Chris Tomlin. This is just free here, right off of this website right here called Guitar Tabs. And it just has the words and the chords. And so, when I first started playing off of these, I had a hard time. And I was just a mess. And so I wish somebody could have, kind of explained what I'm about to explain to you today. So let's go ahead and jump in here. First of all, you need to be familiar with how to figure out your chords in any given key. But here we're going to be working with the key of D. But you need to be familiar. So this is kind of for, late beginner, early intermediate. If you kind of got a grasp on, when I say a D chord, you understand how to build a D chord. If I say an E minor, you know where to go and how to find that. You can fairly easily recognize the different shapes of certain chords, right? D, A, and so hopefully you're well versed in those areas. If not, go ahead and take a look at our keys, our lessons on the different keys. We have one on the key of D. We have lessons on those keys. So take a look at those if you're struggling. But we are going to be working in the key of D. So understand we've got two sharps in the key of D, C and F, and so that's how we're dealing with. That's what we're working with here. Now let's talk about that for a second. How do you know what key you're in? Someone brings you a sheet like this here. It doesn't have first of all, it doesn't have timing. It doesn't have a key signature. It doesn't have notes. All it has is words and chords. And so, how do we figure out? First of all, let's talk about how do we figure out what key we're in. Well, hopefully you remember, and that in a key you've got three major chords. And we're talking about, and when I say major, I mean main chords, and they are also major, as in not minor, but they're like the three main chords that everything kind of revolves around. That's your 1 chord, your 4 chord, and your 5 chord. So let's say in the key of D. In the key of D, our 1 chord is off of the first note of the scale. So the D scale, think D scale. That's why you want to know your scales pretty well. So D scale, what's the first note? Well, that's the D, and so the 1 chord is the D chord. What's the 4th note? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the G, so our 4 chord is the G chord. And what's the 5th note? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the A, so our 5 chord in the key of D is the A. So in the key of D, we know we're going to be using the D, the G, and the A quite often. So what you want to do is look for the three main major chords that we run across. So let's take a look. And usually the first chord of the song is the key that the song is in. So here, the first chord is D. Almost always. Now there are exceptions, but almost always the first chord you're hitting is what key you're in. But say that's not the case. Well, then go ahead and look through the song and find out what are the three chords that are major that are played the most. We've got D, A, and then we see a G, G, D, A, G. So what key has the three main chords of D, A, and G? Well, the key of D, and that fits. That's the 1, 4, and 5 in the key of D. So if I were to give you a lead sheet that had, say, an A flat in there a lot, and a D flat in there a lot, a D flat chord, and then an E flat, well, then you can go ahead and take a look and say, well, what key has the A flat, the D flat, and the E flat as their three main chords? The key of A flat has your 1 chord as A flat, your 4 chord is D flat, and your 5 chord is E flat. So that gives you that tells you what key you're in. Now again, it needs to be the major chords, and it needs to be the three that are used the most. And again, take a look at that first chord, and the last chord is usually a dead giveaway also. Now there are exceptions, but for the most part, whatever chord you play first, whatever chord you play last, that's the key you're in. And if not, take a look at the other chords, and it'll kind of fit together. You'll figure it out as like a puzzle. And so, of course, being familiar with your other chords in the key is going to help as well. See, I see we have a D chord, I see we have an A, I see we have an E minor, we have a G. So what key has all those chords in it? And there's certain flats that we're hitting, there's certain sharps that we're hitting. Like D has an F sharp, A has a C sharp. What key has these in it? But a G natural for G, and these other notes. If you're familiar with your scales and your chords, then you'll be able to figure that out easier. That's why I encourage you to nail down your chords. Get good at your scales, and your chords is going to help you in all these areas. So we figure out what key we're in, and now let's figure out what the timing is. So the timing isn't in here, but if you have a rough idea of how the song goes, then what you want to look for is patterns of 4. 4/4, or 4. The time signature 4/4 is the most common time signature in music. So first, look for patterns of 4. If patterns of 4 ain't working, they're not fitting together, then go ahead and see if a pattern of 3 will fit in. If a pattern of 4 doesn't fit, it's almost always going to be a pattern of 3. So let's take a look at Here I Am to Worship. The verse goes like this: Light of the world, sing. Light of the world, you stepped out into darkness. So let's take a look, and let's just see if we can find a pattern of 4 here. Ready? Light of the world, you stepped out into darkness. Okay, did you catch it? That light of the world you stepped, that's all the first measure, and 4 beats. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. And usually, if you will just play sets of 4, sometimes sets of 2, like that beginning, the D is for 2 beats, and the A is for 2 beats, and then E is for 4 beats. But if you can analyze it and find those patterns of 4 or patterns of 2, then you'll see it start to come together rhythmically. So that's how you can figure out what timing to use, and then also what key. Most of them are fairly simple. Now some may change timing in the middle of the song. Some may even change keys in the middle of the song. That's something we'll get to. But for the most part, they're fairly simple, just like hymns. Hymns are simple, and they're built on just a couple different chords. So are most worship songs, and even pop songs are fairly simple. And so they have a structure similar to this one. So now, what do we play? Well, a couple rules to remember when you're accompanying a singer. First of all, you want to play less when they're singing, and when they're not singing, that's when you can fill in or play more. Also, you want to lay a rhythmic foundation, or you want to emphasize the rhythm. So you move the song forward. They're going to hit and miss on the rhythm. They're going to sing some words before or after certain beats, but you need to be there on every beat. So like this. Light of the world, you stepped out into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see. I can't sing that good, but you get the idea that I'm not always singing on the beat. Sometimes a word comes in before or after, and many times the singer will sing a song differently. It'll be their own interpretation. And so they'll sing a word early or a little late, and anticipate or syncopate the words, but you need to be there as you're accompanying them, laying a rhythmic foundation for them to build on. So just keep it simple. And that's the beauty of this, is you can back up a singer and sound good and do almost nothing. In fact, many times when someone's singing, it's better to play less, like I was saying. So, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if you know your chords, just take a D chord. You can play it in any inversion. However, I suggest to play the melody note as your top note. This helps singers that sometimes maybe you're having trouble, following you as you play. They're going to hear that melody note. So I would, if I were accompanying a singer, I would keep that. This is where the song starts. Light of the world. And I would just go ahead and use this inversion of a D chord. And I'd play an octave in my left hand. And I'd pretty much hold the octave or play it twice with the chords. And I'd just play on the beat. 1, 2. And then it goes to A. So then I would move this hand to an A octave. And then move this to an A chord. Again, you can use different inversions, but the melody note moves here. So I would use this, the root inversion. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's where the melody note goes right there, so you can use this inversion. I'm playing a full octave right there. E minor, and I play it for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so a couple things to remember. Play more when they're not singing. Play less when the singer is singing. Lay a rhythmic foundation and keep it steady. Let me see. Let me go ahead and pause this lesson. We'll jump into it on the next segment.